Welcome to App Stories, a weekly exploration of the world of apps. Today's show is brought to you by Balance and Mutable. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is my co-host, Federico Vitici. Hi, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
Very well. It's good to talk to you again. By the time people listen to this, we're actually going to be together in Chicago.
Yeah, by the time that this episode is out, I should be, along with Mike and some other of our common friends, we should be in Chicago for the Release Notes conference.
Yeah, so we're recording this, and we thought we would talk about music, because one of the things you do when you travel, especially internationally, is you have a lot of time on your hands to listen to podcasts, but also music. And I know you and I both enjoy listening to music, so I thought we would talk a little bit about music apps and how we listen to music and that sort of thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'm the kind of person who, if I don't listen to music at least to a couple of songs every single day, I feel funny. I feel like something is missing from my day.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been this way since I was really a teenager. I need to listen to music every day. And if I don't, I'm not in a good mood, and I just feel like something is missing from my usual day. So I feel like there's never been a better time to be a music lover than it is these days, with all the streaming services and all these different utilities that we have, and all these different type of headphones that we can now, and speakers that we can now use to listen to music. So to give you, I think we should start with some context and to sort of explain to listeners how we listen to music, which is different than listening to a podcast, because a podcast requires more attention, I guess, whereas music is something that can happen more in the background.
Right.
So I listen to a lot of music when I'm driving, whether I'm just by myself or with my girlfriend or with friends. And lately, we've kind of rediscovered the joy of radio, like radio stations, like actual FM radio.
Really?
Yeah, because there's Virgin Radio in Italy. I really like what they do. They are focused on music and the kind of music that I like. So it's when I'm driving and I don't want to look at my phone, and I have a problem with my iPhone, because when Sylvia looks at my phone, she doesn't know where the apps are located, because I have this, my peculiar home screen organization. So she gets upset that she can find, because she keeps mostly the default home screen layout.
Sure.
And instead, I do the opposite. So it's easier to just flip on the radio and listen to whatever the DJ puts on. But I would say that happens like 30% of the time. 70% of the time, I select a playlist in Apple Music, and I have Bluetooth in my car. I do not have CarPlay, so I need to wait for the Bluetooth connection, and it's been fine. I have a Kia Sportage, like a compact SUV, and Bluetooth has been fine. Otherwise, when I'm home, I either listen to Spotify with my Amazon Echo. Yes, I do keep multiple subscriptions for reasons I will get to in a minute. And I also have a few. I don't have a headphone problem as much as Marco Arment probably used to have. I do have choice, though. I have my AirPods. I have my Sennheiser Momentum 2.0, I think it's the model. They are Bluetooth wireless headphones. And I also have a JBL, I don't remember the name. It's a portable Bluetooth speaker. It kind of looks like a black cylinder.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, it's really nice, and it doubles.
They sell them in the Apple stores, I think.
Yeah, and it doubles as an iPhone battery. It's got like a USB port that you can plug in a cable and charge your devices. And yeah, I use my Amazon Echo with Spotify. Of course, I don't use my Mac. And if I don't want to use any of these options, I just listen with my iPhone or iPad speakers.
For me, I do listen from a Mac, and I probably listen more from my Mac than anywhere else, because what I've done is I have one of those little tiny amplifiers. It's called a Lupai or something like that. I'll put a link in the show notes, but it's a tiny little amplifier that drives a couple of small desktop speakers, and I hook that in with a 3.5 millimeter jack into my Mac. And when I'm working, that's how I listen to music, straight through iTunes. So that's probably how I listen more often than not, just because a lot of the hours of the day are spent working. But I also listen to my car, where I do have CarPlay. I have a Honda Accord that has CarPlay in it. It's not wireless. I wish it were, because it's a little bit of a pain. It's slow to boot up, but once it's going, I listen to podcasts and music on it, and music is fantastic. I mean, it's really easy. There's a Siri button on the steering wheel where I can just hit the button and say, play something or other playlist, or play some artist or whatever it is, and it just starts going. So I use that a lot. I don't listen to radio at all. And then I do listen through my Apple TV because we have the Apple TV connected to a receiver and some speakers that we have built into the walls. So I don't do that a lot, but I will listen to music, especially on the weekends. I'll just put on a big playlist. And one of my favorite playlists I do is, you can make a playlist out of all the songs that you've loved in Apple Music. And that's a great way to just find good music. Because if you use that feature a fair amount, very quickly you'll have hundreds of songs you can listen to. And it's great to just put that on shuffle and listen on a weekend. Thanks to Balance for sponsoring App Stories this week. Balance is a wallet for all the world's currencies and tokens. You may have heard about cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and some of the newer ones like Ethereum. There's a lot of buzz about cryptocurrencies and blockchain apps, but not a lot of people are using them yet. Balance is going to change that. Balance is a beautifully designed Mac app that sits in your menu bar and gives you quick access to all your financial accounts and blockchain balances in one place. It's a one-stop destination. Whether it's your bank down the street or your Bitcoin balance, you can access all of it in this handy app. There's also an iOS app in the works that's coming soon and will allow you to access all your balances from an iPhone or an iPad. In fact, the beta release of Balance's macOS and iOS app is coming out in the next week. You'll be able to see all of your balances in a clear, usable way alongside your transactions. You can sign up for the beta on their website at bal.money/appstories. On top of that, if you sign up before the end of the week, you'll get $2 of Ether to experiment with in the app. The website again is bal.money/appstories. We'll put a link in the show notes too. Thanks again to Balance for supporting the show.
So in terms of the services that we use to listen to music, I think we both are Apple Music subscribers.
Right.
And I should say that I really like where Apple has been going with Apple Music, and especially in terms of the iOS 11 edition of social sharing. Not in the sense of like when it used to be Ping in iTunes and, all these other companies that have tried to build social networks on top of music. And it's not like Apple Music Connect either. But in iOS 11, there's a simple model of you can follow someone else or be followed by other people. And all you see is this tiny gallery in the For You page with a quick summary of what your friends have been listening to. And if you want to, you can go to their profile and see the playlists and the activity they've been sharing. But really, I think the best way, at least my favorite way to see what John or Mike or Jason are listening to is just to open the For You page and see like the top recommendations. And that's been working really well for me.
Yeah, no, I've been using that a lot. I think it's really one of the best social networks for music that I've come across because it's very low key and low overhead. You don't really have to pay attention to it if you don't want to. It's just another section of the For You part of iTunes. And I'll just browse through there every now and then and see, oh, all right, here's, something that 2 or 3 of my friends are listening to. Maybe I'll give it a try and listen to it for a while. So it's a great way for me. I don't need to discover a lot of new music every week, but it's a great way to discover 1 or 2 things that may or may not be a hit.
Speaking of discovery, the primary reason why I still keep 2 subscriptions for Spotify and Apple Music, even if I prefer all the native integrations of Apple Music, I can search for songs to listen to via Siri, and I have the Apple Watch integration when you do workouts, for example. It's really nice. But I still think that Spotify is ahead in terms of algorithmic suggestions, like automatic playlists that are generated for you on a weekly or even daily basis. And yes, Apple does some of this. They have the favorites mix, the new music mix, and a few months ago they rolled out the My Chill mix. And those are really nice, especially the favorites one. I think it increased in quality over the past few months, but I think Spotify is better because for a couple of reasons. First, they just offer more choice. They have more types of intelligent playlists generated for you, even daily instead of weekly. And really, there are 2 big problems for Apple here. First, Apple doesn't have anything like Discover Weekly by Spotify. And Discover Weekly is this playlist that doesn't just recommend stuff from artists you love, which would be the favorites in Apple Music, and it doesn't recommend new music either. It's a mix of recent and older tracks that you might love, but you don't actually know yet. And I think Apple needs something like this of stuff that isn't necessarily just old or isn't just new, but it's something you don't know which you might like. And this has been amazing for me in Spotify. And also, Spotify recently rolled out. It's called the Time Capsule, and it aggregates all of songs from your early 20s and artists from a few years ago that might take you back in time and sort of surface old memories. And I think it's really nicely done. So when it comes to these playlists, I think Spotify is ahead of Apple, and I want to see Apple try to do more. But also, there's the fact that Spotify, by being like a third party service that wants to, I mean, they have more subscribers, and that comes from a simple reason. I think it's Spotify is everywhere, and you can have Spotify on your PlayStation 4, on your Xbox. You have Spotify integrations on other web services, and you have like Facebook integration, Messenger integration, and most of all, you have the new smart speaker integrations. So you can have Spotify in your Google Home in the future, on your Sonos One, and most of all on your Amazon Echo speakers. And on the Amazon Echo, what my girlfriend and I like is that in the kitchen, when we want to listen to something, we can just summon the Amazon Echo and ask for music, which plays from Spotify. And Apple is coming out with the HomePod in a few months, and I'm really curious to check it out, even if it won't launch in Italy in December. We don't have an actual timeline yet, but I should say that for now and for the past year, for the past couple of years, Spotify has really been your only choice if you want to have an open web service that works everywhere and has a ton of other people using it and has a lot of automatic playlists. So Apple has some catch up to do.
Yeah, they do. I think that they've slowly been getting there. The progress to me has been a lot like the progress on Siri, where it just kind of creeps up on you a little bit, that all of a sudden you realize your automated playlists are a little bit better. I agree with you that Spotify has done a better job of this historically and is probably still in the lead on that. But I have noticed that, for instance, if there was a given week where I might have listened to some poppy song that I thought was kind of cool, and all of a sudden I'd have a new music mix that was loaded with stuff that I had no desire to listen to, a bunch of pop music that I didn't like. It doesn't seem to be quite as weighted towards that most recent music as it used to be, and it does a better job, I think, of putting maybe oddball or off the normal path type of music that you listen to into the right category and not overweighting it once it gives you those new music mixes. So I think those have been better. I also I think the My Chill mix has actually been very good. It's only been out for maybe maybe a month or two, but every one of those that I've gotten has been pretty good. And I'd like to see see Apple continue to create those. I'd like to have maybe one or two more of those kind of mixes and to see them continue to improve, because I do enjoy getting those, and lately I've been pretty happy with the results.
Have you been chill, John, lately?
I've been very chill lately.
Or have you? I'm not sure.
No, not really. September not so chill. Federico.
Not chill at all. But yeah, I do agree that I want to see at least a couple more in Apple Music. And I was thinking about this, like if Apple starts doing more of these playlists, sticking with the current UI design of a swipeable carousel of items just seems unfeasible in the long term. So if Apple wants to do more of these automatic mixes and stuff, I think we'll also have to get some kind of redesign for the For You page. Maybe a grid of items, maybe like a different list. I don't know. But we'll see what happens.
I think another big test of Apple Music will come in January, because last January I was still getting suggestions for Christmas music in all the way to almost all the way to March. So, if you play a lot of Christmas music during the holidays, that really should stop after December 25th.
Yes, I agree. Do you or have you used any other service? And it's easier for you because you're in the United States, and a lot of these either launched in America first or they're still US only. Stuff like YouTube Red, for example, I don't have in Italy at all.
Yeah, I used that for a little while, and but I used YouTube Red mostly for I really appreciated the fact that it was YouTube without the ads, which was nice. So I have tried that. I'm not a big fan of Amazon Prime Music. It's okay, but it just seems like a cheap version of Apple Music or Spotify. It's just not. I mean, since I've got Apple Music and I have been a Spotify user in the past, Amazon Prime just doesn't really appeal to me. And I've not really used Google Play to any extent other than just a little bit here or there. How about you?
I would say that I used for a couple of weeks, a few years ago, just out of curiosity, I used Google Play Music, and it was surprisingly well done.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that I was interested in it because you could upload more songs for the matching feature. I think iTunes Match was limited to 20,000 songs and Google was about 50,000 songs. Now I don't even care about those anymore because I lost my iTunes library many years ago. And maybe, I mean, I used to be in love with RDO years ago. Now it's, the team that worked on RDO is part of Pandora and their new streaming service, which also I cannot use because it's US only. And I don't think I can sign up for Amazon Prime Music, whatever it's called, because I also think it's US only. So yeah, this is a dire situation of someone who lives in Italy but knows that this stuff exists. But I don't want to constantly be connected to a VPN just to fake that I'm in the United States so I can stream music from other services.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I understand that. I've used Pandora a little bit, but for the most part, Apple has been okay for me, so I've been sticking with that. Thanks to Mutable for supporting App Stories this week. Mutable is a small team of experienced developers that focus on native mobile app development for iOS. They build their own products too, like the glitch camera app Defect, that's DEFQT, so they understand the process from idea to App Store. Projects they have worked on range from SDKs to wrap public APIs to Internet of Things network device management and WebRTC video and audio chat apps. You can add their developers to an existing project, or they can be the entire dev team for your app. They also offer a complimentary Skype or FaceTime call to discuss your project up front. Thanks again to Mutable for supporting the show. How about music discovery services? Because there are a lot of apps that do that, and I've found a few that I really like. I mean, I like Recordbird a lot because Recordbird will look at your library in Apple Music and I think Spotify,
Yeah.
and recommend to you. It'll basically give you a combination of news and videos and new releases, and just basically let you know what's happening with the bands that you actually listen to.
Yeah, I love Recordbird, and it's the primary way that I realized that one of my favorite artists released a new single, for example. And it's also nice because you can add releases and upcoming releases to your calendar. So, like, you configure a calendar from one of the calendars that you have natively on iOS. You pick one of those,
Mm-hmm.
and then you save an album to your calendar with just one tap, and you get an entry saved by Recordbird that reminds you when an album is coming out, which is really nice. And I mean, besides the native discovery features in the main music streaming service, I would say that I've been using in the past I use Songkick to discover concerts around me or in cities that I know I could travel to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's nice, although I've never been able to buy tickets directly from the Songkick app, probably because of some regional restriction. And I use Shazam a lot to not just to tag songs, but to also see what's popular, because I think Shazam is one of those super popular apps that is used by millions of people. And so what you see in the top charts of Shazam tends to be a pretty accurate representation of what the common folks are using. Like, what is my mom listening to?
Right.
Because just about everyone has Shazam. It's not like a music streaming service that only subscribers tend to count in terms of aggregate data. But Shazam is a free app, and a lot of folks just use it, for example, to tag songs in commercials on TV shows and later listen to songs for free on YouTube. So it's a pretty good representation of what the world at large is listening to in any country. And I use Shazam a lot, really, every day.
Yeah, I use Songkick still because I don't, most bands, I think, it seems like concerts get announced more often than not, either on the websites for the bands or in newspapers still, or little regional type of newsletters and things like that. And Songkick's great because it does show me any band that's coming to Chicago anytime in the future. And I was just looking at it over the last couple of days, and there's, I've seen what's coming into town over the next couple of weeks, and there's some great bands coming to Chicago. So it's a good way to figure out everything from bands like Coldplay coming to Soldier Field, which is a big football stadium in Chicago, all the way down to the local club somewhere in a neighborhood. And I've found that to be a great way to go actually see the bands that I know, because it does the same thing as Record Bird, is it looks at your library and figures out what music you listen to, and then matches that up with the concerts
Yeah.
that are coming to your area.
What about sharing songs or like utilities to move stuff around? Do you use any of those?
I have. I use Linky, I think, now more than anything else if I'm actually going to share music on Twitter, because it actually handles the artwork better than Twitter does. It doesn't give you those terrible blurry images that you get in Twitter. So I'll use Linky for that. I've used SongShift and SongShare too, mostly to transfer, SongShift to transfer playlists from Spotify to Apple Music. But I've been pretty much solely Apple Music for the last 9 months or so. So I haven't had to use that as much as I did in the past.
I used SongShift just a couple of days ago because I needed to move some playlists from Apple Music to Spotify. And I mean, it's not perfect. There's the occasional track or couple of tracks that don't get transferred for some reason, even if they actually are present on the streaming service.
Right.
But for the most part, it saves a lot of time. When you have a playlist with like 70 songs and only 65 are transferred, that is good enough. And
Yeah, it's close enough
it's
usually. Yeah.
close enough, and it's 65 songs you didn't have to transfer manually. So does a pretty good job. I know that, Stamp is an alternative, but it's got a strange in-app purchase subscription flow in the iPhone app that I didn't like. And every time I download Stamp, I end up going back to SongShift for some reason.
Mhm.
I know that there are some these services to share links to songs on across multiple services at once. Like when you type the name of a song and you get a link that takes you to a web page, and on that web page you get buttons to either launch Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or Amazon, I guess. And there's
Right.
SoundShare. It's a native iPhone app that can do this on your device. And if you don't want to have like another app on your iPhone because you're not like John, you can use stuff like SongLink, which is a website. You go to SongLink. There's also an API if you want to make your own workflow. You go to this website, there's like a search bar, and you search for a song, and you get a link that opens stuff like song.link/something. And you go to a webpage, and on the webpage, you get multiple buttons. So you can share this link with friends, and no matter the music service they use, they're going to be able to tap on one of these buttons, and the song will open directly in Apple Music or Spotify or YouTube or Amazon or Pandora. And I think this is really convenient especially when you want to share maybe something on Twitter or any other social network and you might not know what your followers use. You can just generate a single link, and then it's up to everybody else can just click on the buttons they prefer.
Yeah, no, that's a definitely a good way to handle it. Do you ever use any alternative playback apps besides Apple Music or Spotify? The built the native players for those services.
Yeah, back when I used to have my iTunes library. Now I know I'm gonna get this wrong, and we talked about this on Connected just a few weeks ago. But there's this app with a French name that I cannot.
Écoutez.
It's Écoutez. Okay.
Yeah, I took like 8 years of French, Federico. I'll take the bullet for you on that one.
Really, you know French?
I do know
Yeah,
French.
you're full of surprises.
I was born in France. You know
I
that.
always forget this. I, for some reason,
Little known fact.
I always forget. So should I call you like Jean Voorhees?
Sure, that works.
uh,
The Dutch and the French don't mix too
no,
well.
I
But
don't
yeah,
think so.
that works.
We'll make it work. Um, and I used to use Écoutez. I would say 5 years ago when I used to have like a local iTunes library. This is way before Apple Music.
Yeah.
And I preferred Écoutez because of the way it looked, and it was like a very standard but very elegant UI. But now I don't anymore. And I know there's still lots of people who are against music streaming services, which they make up for. Like the majority of this episode, we are talking about music streaming services, but it's because
Right.
I think most people now use either YouTube or Apple Music or Spotify. But there are still folks who prefer to sync their own MP3s and FLAC files. And for those people, there are options. I know Écoutez is still one of the most solid ones, but I know, John, that you've been using two other apps on your iPhone for this.
Yeah, I've tried a couple of different ones. One that I like a lot is Picky, because Picky is just like the name suggests. It's for people who want to be really picky about how they see their music. And it really, what it comes down to is a series of granular filters that lets you find music that maybe you haven't listened to in a long time. So if you have a really big library, you can search by all sorts of criteria, whether it's when it was added or how recently you played it or who the artist is. I mean, there's just a ton of different filters that you can use, and it's a really good app for really rediscovering your own library if you have a huge library. And I'm kind of in that strange camp where I have a huge library of owned music, and I've pretty much given it up and just let it go. And I really don't know the difference between streaming music and what I own any longer, because it doesn't really matter to me as long as I'm listening to what I want to listen to. But Picky's really good if you have a large library of actual files that you want to sort through on your computer or your iOS device. So there's that. And then there's Cesium, which Cesium, I think, is particularly good if you like to customize the way your player looks, because it's got light modes, dark modes, all kinds of different color schemes and combinations. You can pretty much bend it to your will and make it your own, which is, I know for a lot of people who enjoy music, it's important to have the player look exactly the way they want. And Cesium is probably the best app out there for doing that, I think. So I think, Federico, that's about it for music for this week. I think that's a topic, though. There's so much there that's something that we may revisit in the future, because there's just a lot of apps available to discover and organize your music. So thanks again to our sponsors, Balance and Mutable. We'll be back next week with another episode, and you can find our show notes at appstories.net. As always, you can find Federico and me on macstories.net and at Club Mac Stories. Federico is on Twitter at @Viticci, that's VITICCI, and I'm at John Voorhees, JOHN VOORHWES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.